Welcome to our second Tech Home Builder Lux General Session. Thanks for coming out early this morning. Please welcome to the stage, sponsor of today's session, Dan Harmeyer with Generac.
Good morning, everyone. So we wanted to take some time here to talk about the home standby generation, the different offers that we have for you guys. So mainly, I'll go over some things here in the slide deck, but we will be out exhibiting. We do have a booth there. We do have some products that we can actually show you too. So do keep that in mind. So I do have a few slides that we'll go through. Let's make sure this works. Perfect. So the thing that we're very excited for is some new products that we have. That would be the meter combo switch. So that's what we call this particular product. Essentially, what it is and what it means for you guys as the higher end, the luxury builders, is that this is a meter can on top. And then the bottom portion is the transfer switch that will transfer power from the standby generator outside to the actual panel in that house. So the reason we're so excited about this is that this is the first product category of its kind. So we've had a very long process to get to where we are today, and this is the only real a builder focused product that we have. So what this means for you, right, for the offer to your homeowners is going to be, you can sell this as what we call a pre-wire system, right? So what that pre-wire is going to be having the switch installed, right? And then you don't necessarily have to have the generator installed per se, but you can still offer that as a upgradable option. So then that would be, right, I mean, what you can offer them, and there would be some more opportunities. You can do a full turnkey system, because a lot of the hurdles that we have to overcome with our products for new construction is it's not standard, right? I mean, you don't have to have a generator on your house for like air conditioning, right? I mean, every home that you guys are currently building will have at least one, if not two or three air conditioners on it, right? So what we've done is we've tried to market, and we've seen a lot of similar trends between what air conditioning is and what our home standby product is. And then this particular product is a great way for us to get involved with you guys on the front end, because you don't have to have a full system installed. You can go with just the meter, and it will fit and it will function just as Square D or whoever you may be using today. So here is just some more pictures, some more details on exactly what this will be. So the first run at is going to be in the 150 or 200 amp option. And the reason we're doing it in that compared to say 400 or above, right, I mean, is that 200, that meets the majority of residential houses across the country. So as we release this, that's why we wanted to choose that particular amperage option. And then you can see here, so the three options on the right-hand side, that is what it would actually look like on the outside of the home compared to your standard meters that you're probably seeing today. So you have your meter on top, then you have your transfer switch mechanism below it. So that actual mechanism is what's on the right-hand side. So that far right one, that is what that accessory is. So what that means is the option in the middle is just your standard meter, right? So you don't have to install the transfer switch. You can allow that homeowner to choose that at a later date, but they have everything installed up front. I mean, it's going to save them 20–30% on the overall cost for the full installation to have this installed up front. Right, so I mean, that's the value proposition that we have for you, that we hope you guys can pass along to your homeowners is, right, I mean, if you're in the high power outage markets, that we can certainly help you out with on what those statistics are. This is a great option to have as a standard, right, on what those homes currently are. So we're going to transition over to some storage, right? So what we as Generic like to do, and we want to give you guys the best option right for standby power. So whether that's storage, whether that is through a meter can that we just showed, whether that's through solar, right? I mean, we want a full whole home energy solution offer, and we currently do have that for you. And this storage system through the PowerCell product is a relatively newer product for us, but it is a great option, right? I mean, nowadays everyone is they're a lot more green focused, right? They don't want to always be burning fossil fuels. Certain HOAs won't approve our equipment on the standby system side. So we released this PowerCell about 2.5, 3 years ago. So it is a true battery storage system. Generac purchased a couple existing companies that had that technology, and then we helped to encompass that into what we can use for our, right, call them 2-3 million different customers that we have. So, right, I mean, as you can see, there are a few things for what this PowerCell product is compared to what our home standby product is, and right, I mean, that whole offer is PowerCell is going to be particular to certain options, right? I mean, you're not going to use this as your true backup system for storm areas. This is more rate arbitrage. If you can net meter, that's where these sort of solutions will come into play. They do help to reduce the demand on the utility side. So that is a way to reduce your utility bill and, right, I mean, help to get your return on that investment quicker. So as we talk about the PowerCell system, right, I mean, so you get about 18 kilowatt hours of runtime. Overarching, what that means for you guys is you can't always power everything in the home, so you would select different priorities. This is where we work with your electricians a lot of the time, and to go over exactly what those high priority circuits are, so then we can make sure that we do give you a full offer. And then the last slide here is going to be just what the PowerCell currently is, right, when it relates to Tesla, LG Chem, Encharge, right, those larger names in those categories that have been there for a while. The main thing is going to be that peak current. So to get up to that 50 amps from a battery system, I know it's not the most exciting information, but when you speak to the storage products, that 50 amp is huge, right? I mean, when you compare that to 30 amps from Tesla, right? I mean, that means you can start that additional AC unit, you can provide that additional capacity, and our systems are modular. So when you install them, there's 6 individual batteries instead of 1 large batteries that Tesla has per se. So that is where the installation and the overall performance, we can definitely go to market against these larger names.
Good morning, everyone. And thanks so much to Dan and Generac. We actually had a session in Louisville that focused on energy independence and air quality. And that's a very in-demand feature, the energy independence piece. So certainly Generac's legacy products in the standby generation category fit the bill, but the things that they're doing with solar and switching and distribution are also really important, and I think that's going to just become a staple category for home builders, and certainly your luxury clients are going to be looking for that. So important stuff for you to look into, and Generac's a true market leader, so thanks to them. So the idea of this session, I think we've been talking about this forever in the Lux Group, is and probably it comes out of some of the research we've done where we see high satisfaction rates from builders of all sorts on the kind of the technical implementation side of things with the subcontractors, and then the front end of the process, the sales and marketing piece, tends to be lowly rated. And I think that, you know, kind of the history here has been luxury builders in particular having a lot of ambivalence about getting their integrator in front of the customer because the fear of a lot of acronyms and people glazing over and really losing sight of the benefits. So I think we've been trying to tackle this topic of what is a great consultation for a long while. That's what this panel is here to address yet again. And I'll go quickly through the names, and then I'm gonna ask them to, after I talk about the flow, ask them to just give a little bit about themselves and the company. But joining me today, Carl Hansen with the Carl M. Hansen group of companies. I think we have 4 Hansens actually in the Lux. I don't know whether you've all connected or done the family reunion thing, but there are a lot of Hansens here.
We're all related.
Yeah. So Carl's been coming, I think, since we started this thing, and you might have come to the Pasadena event, actually.
Yes.
So, and he called me up and said he had some perspectives that he wanted to share, so that's a mistake, because you're going to get on stage and share them. Melissa Mormon's on my left. She's Tim Costello's partner in crime. Hopefully she'll gag him today. I don't know.
I don't know. It's been 21 years of just total bliss.
Yeah. So Melissa's been around for all 20 years of Tech Home Builder, and she's got great perspectives to offer. And Ron Wanless with Technology Design Associates, which is an integration company with 4 or 5 locations across the West here, who's had a lot of experience on this consultation and kind of designing system side of things. So I think we've got 3 great panelists, and the flow is going to be this. So Ron and I are going to do a little back and forth on what his proven process is with builders and architects on the and obviously with the clients as well on the consultation side of things. Then we have Carl's curmudgeonly critique. He said he was going to be a curmudgeon, so I called it out on the slide, but we're going to have his critique on that, but also give us a download on the Hansen process. And then Melissa is going to talk a little more in a more of a visionary way about whether digital can be part of the solution to getting this right for the client and for the builder. And then hopefully we'll get some questions and comments from you all. So that's the flow. Let's go around the table for a little more introduction. Carl, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, yeah, my name's Carl Hansen, and I've been coming here for quite a while. Actually a family company. My grandfather started in Minneapolis, and we built quite a few homes. I like to think of myself as more like you, I would guess, and less like the pie in the sky talks that we hear so often about how we spend hours and hours with pre-planning, with integrators, with architects and things like that. So I think building, my average is probably around $2.5 million just for the build project side. And we do, honestly, I have 9 projects going right now, and some are remodels, but based on conversations with all of you, I wanted to come up here because I so often hear a perspective that doesn't match what I do, and when we speak with you guys are kind of right in there with me, so just trying to ground this discussion, I guess, is a better word than curmudgeon. Okay, so.
Ron?
Ron Wanless. I'm with Technology Design Associates. We're an integration firm. I've been doing this for 39 years now. That's basically all I've ever done. We have 6 locations across western states. And our prime focus is working with builders and architects on making those introductions for your clients to make them simpler, make your process simpler. I've been working for several years now with a lot of different influencers on ways to simplify that process for the builder or the architect or the interior designer, for that matter, if they're the ones that bring us in. But we like to make everything as simple as possible and then engineer a system that works really well for the clients to try and make your life a little bit easier in the long run.
Great. Melissa, a little more on BDX
Great.
and yourself?
Right. So for those of you who may not know, BDX, we have been around for 21 years. We're actually owned by the industry, so we're a little bit of an odd company. And our mission is helping builders with digital transformation. So I guess you could give us a score or a grade on how well we've done over 21 years, but it has been amazing to see going from websites as brochureware, like we just put websites up 20 years ago and said, call me, that was kind of it, to now fully integrated experiences where people can get almost to the buy button in terms of designing their homes and going that. And as Tim mentioned, 63% of people do that online. So that's kind of our mission and purpose. I will say the pandemic has been an amazing silver lining, if there is one. You guys panicked when the pandemic hit because you had to do everything online, and we saw builders just go so quickly and so fast, and it really helped accelerate. And it's not going back. So we're not putting Genie back in the bottle, so that's cool.
Super. So Ron, let's try to walk through some of your process on the client consultation side of things in collaboration with builders, architects, and designers to get the buyer what they're looking for.
So first, let's talk about what the normal process is. And I guarantee you, most of you out there are going to tell me, yeah, that's what we do. A client talks to an architect, a client gets a set of plans put together, a client has all the conversations they need about the way they want their house to look and feel, and they walk away and they send that out to 3 or 4 of your builders, and they say, bring me back some numbers, right? Everybody gets that. They call the electrician, you call all the rest of your trades, you get some numbers, you come back with numbers, you get the job. Halfway through your build, you're getting ready to bring the electricians in, and you said, what about your TVs and things? And they go, oh my God, we forgot about all that. Okay, let's talk to somebody about that. So you call an integrator, or you call whoever. Maybe you call your electrician and say, hey, can you pull me some wires because we're in a hurry. The reality is, at that point, your budget's already blown out of the water, you have no room for anything else, and the client says, but I want all of this. And you have to figure it out, right? How many people out here, that's your normal process you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis? Come on, there's more than that. All right, so our objective was to smooth that process out. Whether it's working with the builder or the architect or whatever, we came up with ideas on how to bring this information to your client early on and have a simple conversation. And in doing that, it eliminates a lot of the tension on the process so that the clients can actually include this stuff in their budget. We all know the prices are going through the roof right now. All of your materials are costing way more than anything we ever planned for. Your budgets are out of the water. But if a guy comes in and you're doing a $2 million house and he says you got a $200,000 electronics budget, where are you going to fit it, right? So if you get it fit in the initial statute, at least the client has an idea what those costs are and they can fit it into their budget, or they can say, you know what, we're going to pre-wire the house and we're just going to move on because we don't have the money for it now, we're going to have to do it all later. Our objective is to get that process done early. We focus primarily on architects and builders that are builder designers, so that we're in at the point where before you're going to budgeting, we're having those conversations. So we've developed some questionnaires that our architects and our design builders are utilizing just to simply send something out to a client and say, hey, by the way, while you're thinking about what you want for stone and flooring and all the rest of that stuff, just take 10 minutes and go through this and maybe throw some ideas on there on the things you'd like to have for technology in your house. Technology is not a afterthought anymore, it's an expectation. Everybody wants technology in their homes. None of them want to have to deal with it. They all want it to be simple and easy to happen or happen automatically. But if they don't have a conversation about what's available out there, they're not going to know, and all of a sudden it's going to happen too late, and it slows down your process, it slows down the budgets, it kills everything, and makes everything more difficult. So for us, we want to do it early. And my recommendation for everybody is that somewhere along the line, you get with somebody to create this process and have an opportunity to have that conversation with the clients, whether it be an architect or even if it gets past your architect and gets to you, the first thing you should be asking is, hey, what about the technology budget? You know, are you guys putting something in there for that? Can we send this to the client so that they can have a conversation and we can get there somewhere?
Right. So dive in a little more deeply on what early means. When specifically are you getting into the conversation? And then I also want to understand a little bit better what a simple conversation is from your perspective.
So if we're working with architects and design builds, it's typically before they even do RCPs. So there's no electrical done on the house yet. And the reason for that is because nowadays integrators are doing lighting control. They're getting rid of wall clutter. They're doing a lot of hidden AV stuff. They're doing all kinds of hidden shading, motorized window shading. All of those things are inclusive in your homes nowadays. And those things need to be decided before you're sending out things for electrical. So we're always trying to get in before architects are designing RCPs.
Is that early enough? I want to push on that a little bit because, and I know you're going to have an opinion on this, but my theme for this event, for the Lux Builders is, and we talked about it a little yesterday on the party space, why are we just pasting the technology on? I understand that some of these other categories, MEP, are all essential and have been around forever. Most of them don't have a strong experiential element for the client, but technology does. And why isn't technology involved at the ideation stage with the architect when the spaces and the space use is being considered? Why do we paste it on after that when the structure is already in place? Because the structure's in place, now we're trying to figure out how a TV or sound might fit in that space instead of designing it in an integrated way. And the reason why I'm pushing you all on this is because I think it means a bigger overall budget. I think it means the client wants more, wants to do more, and not just more technology, but a lot of finishes and structural components that are adding to your overall take on it. So I mean, speak to that. Are you ever getting in at the ideation phase, and isn't that the ideal?
So with our architects that actually buy into our process, we've got 3 or 4 of them now that we've actually put in a full experience within their office. So the clients are actually seeing technology in front of them from day one. So when the architect comes back with their first iteration of plans or having their first planning conversation, they're bringing all this stuff up, they're bringing on their lights, they're running their shades down, they're bringing their information up on the television from their computer, all with a system that we've installed in there so that the clients are like, oh, that's kind of cool, that'd be nice in my house, right? So it's introducing the information to them early, even far earlier than what we're talking about as our kind of our maximum point. So that they're seeing that stuff and thinking through it while they're in that process. So it's nice to have that in there. Those architects have that conversation at conception. They don't necessarily have a meeting with us at that point, but they at least have that conversation at that conception. Things like hidden shades that are buried into soffits or buried into window jambs or whatever, those are things that are structural, right? So they have to be part of the structure. Things like televisions and theater screens and things of that sort, again, structural things you have to build around. So those guys are building that into the structure initially, and that's why they want to have that conversation up front just to get an idea, because clients don't think about it when they're talking to an architect. I want a home theater.
Carl's itching to get in
Oh,
here.
I bet
see
he
it is on his face. Let's get some feedback.
John, I'm ready to leave Integrator Disneyland. This all sounds great. You know, okay, let's get a plan, and it's going to 3 builders. I haven't 3-bid a plan in 10 years. For me, I'm trying to sell the house. The biggest thing that I'm competing against is costs, and you guys know that. It's lumber costs. It's chasing allowances. We set up an allowance for whatever it is, and by the time we get to actually selecting these things, it's not doubled, but it's up 20, 30%. When I get in with a client and I want to talk about AV, it's typically an architect who specs a number. And I'd just like to ask Ron, you know, my architect is busy. He is as busy as he's ever been. I'm busy as ever been. How do you get in front of them? I mean, do you bribe them in some type of way? Do you bring drinks? Oh, really?
We offer us as a resource. So, I mean, the reality is the architect wants to be the smartest guy in the room. And if they don't know everything for the client, then they feel like they're not that guy. So we offer ourselves as a resource, and they bring us in as that resource so that they don't have to be the ones talking to the client about these decisions.
But every builder in this room who's a luxury home builder is the smartest guy in that room. I'm sorry.
That is true, right? Isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
No,
Are you running for office?
no, I'm just trying to say that I think I'm more like these guys than you think. So I think my architect is stupid when it comes to technology. He's a fantastic artist, but let's stick at art. He's not a scientist, right?
He's not. That's
but
why
I'm
they
a
need people like me.
scientist and artist.
Yeah.
And apparently some sort of a comedian as well.
Well, that's why they need, that's why they need somebody else giving them that information. You're right. They don't know about the technology. Even the ones that I put the technology in their offices don't know about all the technologies. They still need us to come in and explain all that to the client and give them that information. but that's now part of their process.
But they don't really need to know about the technology. They need to know about the experiences and the effects and the benefits, right? And,
Correct.
and they need to know how to design that stuff in, but they don't need to know about motorization, differentials, what's quieter. That's the sort of stuff that they leave to you, right?
They count on us for engineering that stuff, which is absolutely true, and our engineering staff does all that work for them in the background, and then they turn it over to the clients, and the clients are thrilled because it came from the architect.
So let's talk a little bit, and Carl will chime in here too, and Melissa eventually is going to get her shots in too. But let's talk about the discovery questions, right? I mean, are we just showing people stuff, or are we trying to really understand what types of benefits they're looking for, how they're going to utilize the space, how technology might complement what their intended use is in that space? I mean, are we getting those sorts of conceptual conversations so they don't glaze over and say, this guy's just trying to sell me a bunch of stuff that he saw at the Consumer Electronics Show last year?
Yeah, so that even with us, and Melissa can chime in on this because this is going to be in her realm, for us it's always been a document, right? And we have always worked from a document that we'll send to the client, and it's a general questionnaire. And they typically have more questions than we do on the questionnaire when we send it out to them. But we hope to get back some idea of what they're doing. We've decided that that's not working well with most clients. They want to know more about the experience, so we're working on digital technology where we can use video and things of that sort to demonstrate experiences for the client so that they can understand what that experience does for them better and be able to go to a website. In our case, it'll be to our website, be able to pull up all of the experiences online and kind of get a feel for what that does for them so that they can generate a better thought process around, well, is it worth me spending the money on this, or is it really just a bunch of pretty stuff and I don't really care about it? And I think going into the digital realm is where that's got to go. I think everybody's got to start thinking about experiences for this stuff so that clients understand what you're talking about. When you're talking about burying motorized shades up in the ceiling of a house, they're like, yeah, I want shades. And you're like, yeah, but take a look at what this is going to look like. If you can show them that experience and where everything's buried away, you don't know they exist, and all of a sudden they come dropping out of the room, they go, oh, that's phenomenal. I love that. I'm willing to spend the extra $50,000 to put those up in there and make that go away. So, Melissa,
let's let Carl take us out of Disneyland for a second.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I
no,
like
I mean,
Disneyland.
all these things are great, but as custom builders, I feel it's my job in that architectural meeting to remind them, hey, if you're going to want shades, you need a 5x5 pocket or something up in the ceiling. At that point, I'm not trying to sell it. I'm trying to get a job. I'm not trying to sell technology, and thanks to lumber prices and everything else, that job just got harder. And I still have to say, I think it's my job to bring that to the table. What you do sounds great. It's just, there's not a realistic time frame that you fit into my world.
And Carl, you've taken on a lot of the traditional responsibilities of the integrator.
And
I mean,
so
by
has
coming
everybody here.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I talked to all these guys. They're here because they want to be the smartest guy in that room and to learn all this stuff.
Right.
And what Ron's doing is great. In a perfect world, I'd love Ron. He could come move into my house. I have a spot for that. But it just, when someone throws a plan at me and says, go, it's harder to wedge that into the process. And I just have to keep saying that. I mean, years ago we did, since 2012, I put a Savant system that went from $150,000 to $200,000 with shades in every house we built. And there's this bell curve, and right now it's, I want one remote and an Apple TV on Velcro behind the television. And I asked them if they want to run it through this Sonos system in the house. And they're like, no, that sounds too complicated. The concept that someone said yesterday or in some meeting was that people were getting app to death. And the idea that people were overwhelmed when there were all these different apps, and having an integrated app, I think it was ADT, having integrated app is worth paying for. Now that made a ton of sense to me like 5-7 years ago, but I sat in a meeting last week where this woman said, I don't want it all in one place. I am so used to all these different apps now. So she said, keep it simple. And simple to her wasn't one app, it was separate things. So is his job as important today as it was 5 years ago, or not? Does that make sense?
I hear you. Do you want to speak to it, Ron?
Well, I don't want to say, I would say that the integrator's job nowadays is more important than it was in the past. You are going to get people who are not afraid of multiple apps and multiple functions and different things that they have to operate in their home, but the majority of and I come from a different perspective, right? The majority of the clients that we deal with are clients that want our services because they don't want to have to deal with multiple apps and they don't want to deal with all that. But more importantly, they're people that want the technology in their home to begin with. So they're going to have some sort of technology. It's up to the integrator to provide the proper technology to make it simple. If I've had this conversation with a lot of builders, they always say, well, what's your time frame for coming in and teaching the clients how to run the house? And I say, if I have to teach the clients to run the house, I shouldn't have done this job. A proper integrator shouldn't have to teach a client how to run their house. It should be automatic. They should be able to walk up, tell them, you send them a link to the app on their phone or on the touch panel in the house, and they should be able to walk in and run it. They shouldn't have to have instruction on what they're doing. Our job is to make it simple, and for that reason, the integrators nowadays are super important in order to make that happen.
Well, I think, Carl, when you called with that observation when we were getting ready for this, I was thinking about how we need to build in addressing simplicity into this consultation with the client, right? Because we're gonna take them through typically a long laundry list of options, and maybe we're doing that in a product taxonomy sort of method, or maybe we're using a room by room approach, or trying to get at benefits and lifestyles and build from there. But I do think that there is this creeping distrust of an overcomplicated system, and so that part of the conversation, maybe even up front, to get them less fearful about ideating about all the stuff they might want, up front is, we're gonna make this simple to operate, right? It's not going to be, we have to do that within reason though, right?
Yeah.
Because there is digital gardener sort of mentality to, once you're pretty loaded up on tech, or even if you have some simple apps, there is going to be some troubleshooting from time to time. There's going to need to be some updating, and part of that is about building appropriate, maintenance and service contracting into the equation too. But I do think if we want people to do more with the technology, we're going to have to address that as part of the consultation. What do you think, Carl? But you're doubting it.
I'm just saying that I've seen it went from Ron and I were talking earlier. If you give somebody a questionnaire and say, do you want this, do you want that, do you want this, every single time they check every box until they get the cost, right? And if there's anything that I need help with, it's that. It is translating from everything to what they really, maybe it's what I tell people, you can have anything you want, you just can't have everything, right? So I need somebody to get through that and to give me a realistic expectation and an allowance number. My architect, is throwing numbers at me in these specifications, and he's not educated. He's never sat down with Ron.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation earlier this morning when we were prepping for this. And if you guys take nothing away from this part of the conference, take this away. If you don't already have an association with the Home Technology Association, if your integrator is not HTA certified and nobody's told you about this, the Home Technology Association, if you go to their website, or if you send your client to their website, or if you, even better yet, we talked about, send your architect to their website. There is a technology budget calculator on there that will wake people up. Send your architects to it.
You lose every single job.
Send your architects to it. So they get there initially, right? So they have some sort of a clue as far as what these costs are. Like Carl was saying earlier, his budgets, his allowances on his projects come in with $30,000 for technology, and the client comes back and says, I want $150,000 worth of stuff. Why can't you do it for that $30,000 allowance, right? Wake people up. Make them understand what the technology takes, and that calculator will really help everybody understand.
It'll help scare the clients away.
It'll help them understand budget. You gotta make budget. That's the key. And by the way, I have nothing to do with that. That's a third-party thing, but it will really wake everybody up and make them understand a little better about budgets.
Carl, when you've taken the ball to a great extent, or you got your hands on the, whatever your metaphor is, driving with your hands on the steering wheel, or you're taking the ball. So what is your process like with the client and the architect when exploring tech? I mean, are you looking at it experientially and from a benefits perspective, or
Frankly,
talk to that?
frankly, in the past so many years, I've always had a home that was updated with Savant and all that kind of stuff. It is like Integrators Disneyland in my house, maybe more like Space Mountain. But it's something that I can put people through. But just like the checklist, everyone that goes through the house says, I want this, 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 and that, until they figure out what the price is, right? Mm-hmm. So my system is a little bit different. If I'm sitting with an architect in a room, and there's always this meeting where they go through and he provides us with target allowances for things that we use for an initial estimate on a house. And I just make sure that we talk about light control, shades, that type of thing. And one particular architect that we work with, he was speccing $10,000, $20,000 until I built his first house. And he put in, full Savant system and light control and all that. And then all of a sudden his allowances started to go to like 100. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I built the second house for him, and he went ahead and wrote down 30,000 because of the costs and everything that are rising like they are today. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden the house budgets went down again. And now, after living there in a system where he's got one remote and an Apple TV Velcroed to the back of his television and Sonos, those budgets are going up again. Okay, so I'm doing what Ron doing. It just took me like 7 years and $4 million worth of houses to educate him. It'd be easier if Ron just went into his office, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the process is, just like these guys are doing, they're probably sitting there. If they're lucky, they're sitting there with the architect. If they're not, someone throws a set of plans on their desk. So they either use a model home, an existing home, or a down-to-earth conversation without all the technical things. And what Ron's saying about that website, it sounds fantastic, it really does. But every one of my clients that are going to go through that are going to come up with a $250,000 budget and come back to me, and all of a sudden the house is too expensive.
Okay, well, let's broaden out this discussion. I think we've been a lot of smart home and AV sort of focus in what we've been talking about, but what about emerging categories like indoor air quality? You said that you got more leads on ventilation products.
Yeah, I'm a TV sound kind of guy, and even lighting, that just the basic stuff. When I come to this thing, or the first thing I came to in Pasadena that I came home with, which out of all the stuff that was there, Kohler had this touchless flush thing, right? I brought that home, put it in a couple houses, and I was like the Wizard of Oz, or the Wizard of Poop or something. But
that's quotable. Let's get that on social media.
So
Totally. Pound poop.
I'll put that on my bio for next time. But what I'm trying to say is there's so many other categories of things. Now, a guy like Ron, I don't know Ron. I'm assuming that he doesn't sell touchless flushers. I come up with the Mow and Flow, the Fin, these types of things, which are huge. That's stuff that was really put in my face at these shows. I'm not sure if Ron does that. My integrator certainly doesn't have a clue, right? And in fact, I had Chubb come to me and say, we need to have the Fin talk to the alarm system to call us. And my integrator said, what the hell's a Fin? And so there's a disconnect. And again, it's got to be us, the smartest guys in the room, and that's why we're here. If someone asks for indoor air quality, we've had people come in with asthma, and years ago, using air exchangers, I think we've cured people's asthma. But that wasn't Ron, that was me. Yeah. Learning these things at these events. So I don't know, Ron, do you bring any of these things to the table, or are you just a one-trick pony?
Well, wow.
Smackdown.
Whoa.
Can we get a rim shot?
I like that. Anyway, it's okay. We're bringing a lot of these things to the table, so, but not all integrators are. Most of you are dealing with integrators who are the AV guys. Now they're doing some lighting control. Maybe they're doing motorized shades. But not all of the guys are trying to stay ahead of the curve. Well, personally myself, with 39 years in this industry, I spend a lot of time trying to stay ahead of the curve. We have lighting design built in. We are doing wellness stuff with circadian rhythm lighting, where we actually do fixture sales as well. We work with electricians, we work with architects on things for healthy stuff in the home. So again, air purification, water purification, renewable energy, solar and battery. So the Generac guys, stuff like that. We're actually involved in all of that, and we include it as part of our engineering. Whether or not we sell it or not is totally isolated from what we do. We include that as part of our engineering process so that we're at least asking the questions.
That's huge. That's huge. I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, that's
I would say,
absolutely big
Carl,
for us.
we're in the early stages of that among integrators, but most of the traditional applications on AV and automation have become somewhat commoditized. So companies like Ron, they have to look for the next circle of applications. And healthy home, the energy independence piece,
Do
the
you do
energy
solar as
efficiency.
well? I mean,
We don't,
geothermal?
again, we don't do solar and we don't do geothermal, but we include it in our engineering
That's
if it's the right application. So, I mean, one of our offices is in Phoenix, Arizona, so we work with solar guys all the time. But we are actually a dealer for one of the battery companies. But so we work with the solar integrator, we work with the energy management side of it on our end. They install the solar, they connect it up to our energy management system, and we include that in our integration. So again, we're trying to stay ahead of the curve.
So your engineering part is almost like a third party, not connected to the integration if it doesn't have to be sort of a consulting service?
Yeah, so we have a separate service that does all the engineering, whether we do the project or not. So I have builders and architects who reach out to us from a lot of areas, and they're like, well, I've already got an integrator I love, but the architect says we need to use you for the engineering. I'm like, that's fine. We're happy to do all the
What do
engineering.
you charge a guy like us?
Well, it depends on the project, obviously.
Okay, but every project we're
let's say
doing is like
it's typically an average
3,000
of,
to 7,000
yeah,
square feet.
and for us, that's about a $3,000 to $5,000 engineering cost.
Okay.
So that's just a random number, but I mean, we do houses anywhere from 2,000
And
to
how do I
50,000
get that
square
money
feet.
back?
Well, if we're doing the project,
Well,
then
you're
the
not,
client
'cause
gets
you're
that
not in Minnesota.
automatically. But if we're the engineer, that you get that money back by saving all the time, right? So the one thing we can never get back, and the one thing that we have a very limited, finite amount of, is time. And you only have so much time to work with your clients, and you're having to do everything else. So if all that gets done for you, and you don't have to chase it, you're getting that money back in just in time alone.
Well, we got to get Melissa in here, but
Yes.
I want to explore kind of the integration of these 2 points of view, where Carl, you've decided to have the expertise in this broad suite of technologies, and you're working with integrators. You in many instances, Ron, are on point on that stuff. What's the ideal mix? I mean, I would prefer, I want all you luxury builders to know a lot, to be able to have a great, well-informed relationship with your integrator. But, you know, how do we kind of divide the labor here on the expertise and in the interface with the client and the architect? What's the ideal? I think you've learned some things here. I'm sure Ron's learned some things.
I'm ready to give him a hug. No, and the reason is because, I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know he was a consultant. I thought he was trying to sell, you know, $200,000 worth of a house. But this is a very interesting thing. I don't know anyone in my market who does this. Apparently, he's in my market because he's everywhere. But that would be a great thing. So, I mean, I'm not always able to be there, and at some point I'll be dead. And when that happens, someone needs to take the ball, and there's no way we're going to get anybody as smart as us in the room here because we currently have the time to come to these things.
Yeah.
So when my son takes over my company, that's what we're really going to need, is somebody like him to come in and do it.
So again, this goes back to the time thing, right? We only have so much time in our lives to deal with. I reckon, and as an integrator, I've been doing this forever. I've tried education. The one thing one of the biggest, most difficult things I have in the building industry is getting a builder to take the time to learn what I have to provide him. And you guys know, I don't have time to sit down in a one-on-one with my integrator for an hour for him to teach me something. I got too many things on my plate. But I recommend that you do what you can to know the very basics and trust somebody to do the rest of that work for you, because you don't have the time to do it. You don't have the time to learn it all. Trust somebody that actually knows what they're talking about and take advantage of that so you have the time.
Super. On the other hand.
On the other hand,
Ready, set, go.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, you know, I was sitting over here and I wish I had like a smiley face and a not smiley face from an experience perspective. Like as things were coming out of your mouth, there were some amazing things where it's like, yay, raw. And then there were other things I'm like, oh, cringe. But I'm not trying to be critical because it's really hard, right? Like it's really hard. But I think the key is experience is the new marketing. So when you think about, as you're engaging with your clients, and it crushes me to think you can't give them their dream because that kills the budget and you lose the deal. That's horrible, right? That's a horrible experience for you and for them. And I think we have to kind of remember that we're actually selling an experience that they're gonna live in, and we're selling the lifestyle and experience. The parts behind the scenes, most consumers or buyers are not gonna actually get it, and they can get pretty overwhelmed pretty quickly. So they do rely on us to be the experts, right? To kind of coach them based on what kind of lifestyle they're looking for.
Yeah, well, I think selling the experience is different than presenting products
Yes.
and asking what people want to order, right?
Yes.
That's how we get into trouble on the
Absolutely.
budget, right? It's,
Yeah.
do they want the experience? How much do they value that experience at? Now we're in a
Right.
different place in terms of
Right, and
customer satisfaction
Right.
and the take rate.
The worst thing we can ever do is present them options without pricing, because to your point, yes, I want all that stuff, right? But when you do that, you immediately set yourself up for failure. But if customers see lifestyle choices and they see at least ranges of pricing and they see that, they'll make those trade-off decisions just like we do with every product we purchase in our lives. Like we go onto Amazon and we go, these features for this price, these features for this price. Okay, I get it, right? And then I'm not super disappointed
Right.
because I asked for all this stuff and now I can't afford it. You're telling me I can't have my dream.
Right. So let's dive into the digital presenting and
Yes.
value prop side of things. And I guess part of my thought, and we've been going back and forth the last couple
Yeah.
of weeks while you were somewhere in New
I don't know.
Mexico,
Yeah,
hidden
I
and
don't know,
offline,
wherever.
I look at, we serve the high volume side of the market, and I look at all of these tool sets, and that's been your focus plainly over the years. I look at all these tool sets that have been developed for experiential marketing
Right.
of options, et cetera. And this group of companies has not been inclined to use those things because the initial batch of those were really for the big builders,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
I
you were
mean-
owned by the big builders, so the initial
Right.
batch of that stuff was aimed at scale. But a lot has changed.
Oh, it's absolutely changed. And you kind of look at how we work in a way. When you're launching new products and services, you kind of need scale to kind of figure it out and get the price to a reasonable point. I mean, VR tours used to be $100,000 a plan. Guess how many we sold? 0. Now they're like 8,500 and they're affordable, but it took scale for us to get that affordable. What's really exciting now, John, is that we have custom builders really embracing those tools and technologies as well because it's become so much more affordable. And technology is kind of the great equalizer. I mean, don't tell Pulte or Lennar that, but it is. It actually does help even the playing field.
Yeah. So what I'm concerned about for you all is you present yourselves as a premium service provider to luxury buyers. Are we presenting the options, the technology options and everything else? Are we presenting at a premium level versus the building competition, right?
Right.
If there's sophisticated experiential tool sets on the high volume side to present everything and the technology, but we get sometimes a demo in an architect's office, other times just a cut sheet or something in a conversation.
Right, and it sounds like
Is that a premium experience for the buyer? And are we really setting ourselves up to,
Right.
to optimize?
I think it introduces a lot of friction points.
Yeah.
And I picked up on one of these guys, what they said was, we get the whole house designed, we've got the kitchen, we've got all that stuff, we're gonna leave tech till later, which means it's not incorporated in, which is just a huge friction point, and you're gonna lose people, or you're saying, oh, I just assumed if I'm paying $2-3 million for a house, it would have automatic shades.
Yep.
Maybe not included. And I think the key is way early in the process. And I love, what these guys do in terms of consulting early, right? And the integrators in that process, but you may not be able to be there. And the point of sale and the point of decision making is way ahead of those appointments. They're on their website, they're looking at what you've built before,
Right.
they're looking at that lifestyle, And that's setting the
Well,
expectations.
what about lessons learned from digital option selection on the high volume side of things, which is like, hey, you could present it, but people want to spend time
Yes.
on these options, right?
Right.
And so if they just have an appointment with you and then they're left with their memory of it, it's one thing versus
Right.
they've got a tool where they can go back and visit and look at their wish list. This is how we get people to go for the additional budget, is because
they are sitting there processing. If there's two people involved in this, two partners, they're fighting about where they want to spend their money. They always spend about 30% more because
Right.
they have 24/7. They're studying all these things. They're looking at those lifestyles, and we go, okay, we know that's going to cost $10,000 more. Really got to have that. They sold themselves. It's not you pitching across the table trying to get them to spend more money or trying to figure out how to fit their dream into this budget that was already established.
Yeah.
They're actually selecting,
Yep.
right? They're buying.
So did we have some things we wanted to show?
We had a few
or-
things. We had a
Okay.
few little
Are the
eye
guys
candy.
in the back ready to
I
show
think
some
so.
things?
We threw it at
We
them.
really threw some curveballs today. We had
Yeah.
some
So-
cloud-based document issues.
So these are kind of just some random samples of things, and everybody's familiar with Matterport tours. And you may go, well, I don't have spec homes, I don't have model homes, but you've built amazing homes. Before you move on, always capture these amazing homes. And today with MatterTag, you can highlight different either products, lifestyle things, little features that you put in the house. And it's amazing. These things are stupid cheap. I mean, like stupid cheap. So
What's
that
stupid
visual
cheap?
content, I mean like $500, right? Yes. Yeah, it's actually Matterport is the name of the camera. And what's that? Yeah, it's the company. It's a scanner, right? So they basically go in the house and they place the camera, and it does kind of this in different spots. So you'll see that little hot spot going around.
It's a platform, though.
Yes,
They've
it's a
got the
platform.
equipment and they've got the software that enables
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
tag this. And is Tim still
The,
over?
the,
Oh,
No,
he
the-
left
he's not.
the
us.
new capture allows you to use an iPhone 12 or 13 as long as they got a LiDAR scanner on your phone. You can do this with your own iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
my only caution to you is there is a little bit of finessing with these guys, so if you don't do it right, you're gonna get people in the shot, you're gonna get blowout lighting, there's things that you wanna course correct, but it's just an amazing tool. And then I think for the integrators, what we're seeing is the product manufacturers, the integrators are embedding their sales pitch, if you will, into this content for the builders. So you don't have to be at every appointment, or you don't have to trust that the builder is obviously as smart as this guy down here. He's amazing. Not all builders have all that capability. Let your digital content tell the story.
Did someone have a question out there? Speak up so we can all hear you.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can do videos, you can do, kind of more imagery, you can do galleries. It's really, really effective. And I think that for custom guys, luxury guys, it's just a great way to show your work.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
then-
mean, Tim had a great idea this morning while we were
Did he?
struggling. Yeah. While we were
Don't tell him.
Shucks. While we were struggling with the download,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
his idea was you all should be Matterporting every home you're proud
Yes,
of,
yes.
right? And then doing storytelling, not just like this is what if it's custom wood that was hewn in a factory,
Absolutely.
you are showing. It's a way to show off, not just to show commodity level.
So a lot of builders are using it to document the house as it's being built. Because a lot of times you get hit with warranty issues or you get hit with whatever, you want to be able to demonstrate what's behind the walls. So some builders are using the scanning capability of this to actually see and capture that as you go through the build process. And it's kind of a CYA, right? It's like, yeah, here's what we did.
Well, that's cool. I mean, you have the quality control piece, but you could
Mm-hmm.
also tell the story of the bones of the house, right?
Absolutely.
Like it's a hard story to tell. It's hidden.
Yeah.
So if you capture that, this is why this house has resiliency, integrity, healthy home,
Right.
energy efficient, et cetera.
Absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
On a very simple basis, yeah. I mean, we use categories like, light control, public spaces or the whole house. Shades is a really tough one because you guys know that can go from $10,000 to a couple Maseratis. When you get to TV, sound, and that type of thing, it's, you know, whether you want a full integrated Savant type experience or if you just want a remote in every room. So yeah, we touch on those things, but I mean, I can have that conversation and he's not going to like it, but I can have that conversation in 5 minutes, at least to get those initial budgets going. And it shouldn't be. It should be something that an engineer does. I believe that. But in the real world, I don't have the time.
There's another question back there. Go ahead.
What we're used to, I think California and several states, you know, you're going through governmental municipal agencies to get permitted. And so those are generally life safety items that come into play. What we're talking about are wants versus needs. And needs in the sense of, you know, and I couldn't help but think of yesterday with the water flow part, you know, once you've been through an incident where your house has been flooded, that item became a need. And, but in this, there's a lot of still, it's optional. So that aspect of introduction, I think what was mentioned by Ron, having that service, because immediately when I go to the architects aren't going to take the time to learn your business and start adding it and integrating it. What was mentioned by Carl is if it's a service, just like when I have a structural engineer, I have a site engineer, all of those are required by the municipality before they issue the permit. Therefore, it is part of the deal. Whether you're pricing or not, if it's mandated, you don't have a choice. It's going to be included. So I was just thinking, you know, if you had a service where that sense is brought to the table as, you know, whether it's from the state level, they're requiring that the energy efficiency is incorporated. Now, all of a sudden, you guys are right at the top where it needs to be on the front end. And that was my thought, just working with that aspect of it. And I think the service is fantastic. If I could pay someone $2,000, just like I pay for my stormwater engineer $2,000 to resolve where my water goes, if I had an integrator that did that service, I'd be more than willing to pay for it. Now, I have all extremes of clients where our clients will, some have more than enough money to spend, whatever it is, but choose to say, I don't want it. I want it simple. I like the old on-off switch. Don't give me any more. I want a refrigerator that works. They like it basic. And then I have folks on the other flip side of it go all the way and some. So that's a hard place to solve because now you're dealing with individuals and where they are with it.
I just want to give you a quick reaction. I mean, you said a lot of interesting things there, but don't rely on code to drive you for innovation and giving buyers what they want. I know you guys have a lot of code requirements coming at you, and at some point it's just like, hey, I'm just going to try to comply with the code.
Yep.
That's as much as I can do.
Right.
But your buyers want so much more than code. And I know we talked a lot in Louisville. I don't know who was here in Louisville, but we were trying to get the digital drawings on the tech to be included alongside the MEP drawings, and they don't because the permitting requirements don't insist on the technology plan. That doesn't mean that it isn't the right thing to do for you and your business and for your clients. So let's give the people what they want and not the code authorities what they want. And we got to give them what they want, but we can do so much more.
Yeah, really raise the bar. And they're out there shopping and looking at lifestyles and experiences and all of those good things, and that's what they're coming in with. So we do have to kind of meet them where they're at. Kind of this one we didn't really talk about, but again, this just speaks to making choices within context of budget. If I know what different things cost, I can make great decisions. I just spend more. I sold myself. And then the next sample, these are virtual reality tours. If you want to click, John, I think the next one. So this is a complete virtual reality tour. So this was down, I think this was in Star Island, but very nice home, very, very high-end luxury. Wasn't built, but what we're finding is builders are doing these early in the process for two reasons. One, you sit down with the client and you've kind of scoped it out and you've spec'd it out and it's going to be X millions of dollars. Show them how the experience is going to be. I guarantee you save hundreds of thousands of dollars because customers can't visualize on just a floor plan or an architectural drawing.
Yep.
So builders are using these with their custom clients, so you can see it. The other way builders are using it, kind of my friend who likes the scanning technology, it allows the builder to walk through the home before you build it, right? And especially for you guys, you're doing completely custom. It's not like you're cranking these out like cookie cutters, and it allows you to see things before you build it. So these have just been amazing. And what it's showing is lifestyle. And you could easily embed tags and call outs and those things. You can put visualizers in these things so that they can play with the selections and all that good stuff. So this is where, yeah, it used to be that only the big guys could afford these. These are now becoming really common in the custom.
So you could do
land.
virtual concept homes, right?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
it could be your vision as a custom builder that's laid out there, and it's a thought starter. It's
Right.
idea starters, and how much?
Yeah, exactly.
How much?
Oh, $8,500.
Okay,
So we
Right.
do something that's a lot less complicated than that, a simpler deal. And I've been just giving clients an Oculus Quest. It's a $400 VR headset.
Yeah, headset.
And so I actually had a client, two clients, one who couldn't see a window from the
Right.
house on the plan because there was a porch in the way. She put this thing on, I sent her home with it, and she called me back and she said, don't order that window. And I said,
Right.
well, no, we're really early on in the process. I didn't know that was there, I didn't know the shape. That happened, it saved about, I don't know, $10,000
Right.
in a window replacement for a
Right.
$400 thing. Now, we paid about half that for the virtual reality file. But the second one I had is these people went home and they came back and said, our dining room, dinette area is too small. Because they're actually wearing this thing, walking around,
Yep.
and they're like, this isn't right. On the plan, it looks like it's right, but it isn't right.
Right.
That happened, saved them a whole lot
Well,
of trouble, and
and-
that's so super cheap.
Right, and you know what happens, sometimes it is their mistake, but you end up eating it because they're so ripping pissed, and it's like, okay, fine, I'll change it. Costs you a fortune, and then they're not happy anyway, right?
Yeah.
They think, oh, you screwed up, right?
Yeah.
Because they can't spatially conceive of the home.
Yeah.
So hats off to you.
we got to wrap up here. I think more luxury custom builders got to get on
Yeah.
this train of using
possible.
digital to sell not just the tech but the entirety of the home. And good discussion.
Yeah.
Lots of different perspectives. Email addresses up there. Big thank you to Generac for sponsoring this.